Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you joined us today.
All right, y'all, come on. Let's get into it. Hey, folks, thanks for joining back up with us today at the For Better and Worth podcast.
Yes, we are so glad that you are here, and we've got a fun topic today, I think, don't we, husband?
I think it's going to be fun. You know, we say that every time. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. But I really think, we're just trying to make sure we're addressing what people want to hear. And not only what they want to hear, but what you all need to hear. So we're going to talk about debt.
Yeah. Actually, people have wondered in our story, could we have gotten out of debt faster? Because it took us 5 years, and it sounds like a long time. And so it really is a fair question, right? Like, could you have done it faster, gotten out of $90,000 in debt sooner than that? And so we just want to, get into it and talk about yes or no. Husband, can you answer that for us?
I guess I never really thought back to it because sometimes you have to just earn your journey. You have to own your journey. And your journey is just that. It's your journey. And even though, people have gotten out of that sooner and people have taken longer, you have to figure out where you are. And at that point in life, we were at an interesting phase. Yeah. And I think we got on the same page, and we've realized that the way we walk in unity and agreement, it's not common, but, it's not necessarily uncommon because everybody can have exactly what we have as far as how we think if you make the commitment and you're motivated to try and do things and get on the same page.
Yeah. And when we were talking about this in preparation to do this episode, we were discussing what we could have done to actually get it done faster. So let's just answer the question. Could we have gotten out of debt faster? What do you think?
When you posed that question to me, I took a moment and I thought about it. I was like, you know what? We actually could have. And I immediately started thinking about the things that we could have done differently had we just adjusted some things.
Yeah.
And so I think that we could have done it sooner. And we're going to talk a little bit about it today. And maybe this will be the thing that someone out there needs to hear that makes a difference for their journey.
Yep.
So
absolutely. So when we were talking about this previously, what first came to mind, in terms of getting out of debt faster? Because I absolutely believe we could have as well. But your reasoning is a little different than mine. And so I think that is the thing that surprised me the most, is that we didn't quite see eye to eye on that.
Yeah, but I immediately started thinking about, wow, what are some of the things that prevented us from doing it sooner? And I started thinking like, man, we actually went back into debt.
Yeah.
Like we started out with $60,000, but our story is that we had $90,000 in debt. And I was like, oh man, we increased our debt load.
Yes.
Because we were young people, and we decided that, well, look, we've been in this apartment for a year, and we got pregnant. We were going to have a baby. We got to go get a house. Mm-hmm. And here we are, two 20-somethings. We didn't just get a house. We built a brand new house.
Yeah, we got a nice one. Now, it was an entry-level home. It was not beyond our means at the time, or what we could afford on a monthly basis. However, with a house comes stuff, because you got to fill that house. You got to make it look good. You got to keep up with some landscaping. And so although the monthly payment was not high, we have responsibilities to upkeep that home and to make it an actual home.
Yeah, I also think that everybody wants to be a homeowner. And I love to see people become homeowners and get into home ownership and begin to build assets, especially sitting in the seat that we sit in today. We've owned several homes. We are very shortly, we'll have our home paid off, and it's a big deal because it frees up a lot of, capital. But with home ownership, there's a lot that comes with that.
Oh yeah, especially a brand new house. I mean, the list is plenteous.
I think a new house or a resale, they all come with a lot
Yeah.
because homes require upkeep, they require maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that has dollar signs associated with it.
Yeah.
So before you run out there and go buy a house, just make sure that it's the right time, it's the right house, it's within your budget, and all of those things.
Yeah. We had to paint. We had landscaping. We had window treatments. We had empty bedrooms that we wanted to put things in. Oh, everything, especially since it was a brand new house, we wanted new things,
Yeah, we
right?
had to purchase appliances and
Right.
things like that. And so those are some of the things that cause us to go further into debt. And when you start thinking about could we have done it sooner, the first thing that comes to mind, knowing what I know now, the one thing I probably would have done differently is I would have stayed in the apartment longer. I would not have purchased the home at the time we purchased the home.
And that surprised me. That actually, I have never in our 24 and a half years of marriage heard you say that. And so I find that to be interesting. So I just want you to say more. What would have been different? What do you believe would have been different had we stayed longer? And how much longer would you have stayed in that apartment?
Look, I think I might have considered an additional year or 2 years before we purchased our home because I know what our rent was at that time. And when we purchased our home, our mortgage went up by almost like $600. And I think about it now like, man, we increased our expense by $600 a month. And that $600, we could have used that to put towards eliminating our debt versus increasing what we were paying on a monthly basis. And it came with, homeowners insurance, it came with taxes, and that's not even factored into it. Well, maybe it was factored into our monthly payment. But those are additional things that we started to have to pay that we wouldn't have paid had we stayed in the apartment. We could have paid, renters insurance, things like that, but our expenses would have been significantly less.
Yeah.
And we could have we could have stayed in the one bedroom. We would have had one little baby, one child. We could have made it work.
Yeah. Well, I think, let's be honest though. I think we would have been on struggle bus. I mean, we could have done it, and many people do. I do not want to discount. And the truth is, the fact that you're even saying that you would have been willing to do it I think is interesting. But that is facts that we had, several $100s per month more, not to mention all of the out-of-pocket expenses. And then it's a bigger space. It was, I believe, twice as big as our apartment. And so that's heating and cooling for a bigger space. You're talking about homeowners association and mowing the lawn, like a lot of things that you do not have to take care of in an apartment. And so while we believe in home ownership, it set us back a bit. And so, I understand why you say it, but as the mama bear, I'm kind of like, well, my baby need her room. Okay.
Yeah, and I think about like, living in Arizona, buying a new home, and you walk outside and literally the front yard is dirt
Yeah.
and the backyard is dirt. And so we spent, money. I was out there moving rocks like I was Hercules, like moving wheelbarrows of rocks and installing sprinklers and grass because I needed to save money, but that was still money that we put out. And we spent money landscaping our backyard and all those different things. Now, I did a lot of things, at the house because I'm handy like that, but that was still money that we spent. And that's money that we could have reallocated. And so I think here at the For Better and Worse podcast, we really try and get people to understand that, we want to keep it 100.
Yeah.
And while our journey wasn't perfect, I did say our journey was our journey. I think it helped craft who we have become, but we definitely could have did some things a little differently. And so maybe this matters to somebody who's out there listening.
Absolutely. And you mentioned we started out our marriage. When we got married, we had $60,000 in debt when we added it all up. And then how is it that we actually paid off $90,000 in debt? And it's because, or over actually, $90,000 in debt. And it's because of the other thing that put us back into debt, which is vehicles. Vehicles.
Well, like you said, you mama bear, I'm Papa Bear. And not only did we get a home and that increased our expense, we did have a child and childcare increased our expense. And like any good parent out there, when you have a child, oh, this car is insufficient.
Right.
We had to go get the newer car because let me just put a pin in it because we don't buy new cars. We believe in buying slightly used cars that are 1 to 2 years old, and so we were smart then to know not to go out and buy a new car. We bought cars that were only a couple years old, low mileage, but it was new to us.
Right.
And so we had to go get a new to us car.
I think that's good. That memory is interesting because it happened twice, right? Like we had one child and our car, basically died on us. That first time that car died on us, and we needed a new car. That's a whole nother story for a whole different day. But that car died on us, and so we needed to replace it. And then the second child came and we wanted another car. It happened both times. And so I find it interesting, and I know we're not alone in this, that when babies come, when we have that addition, we're always thinking of transportation. And we're always thinking of carting these precious cargo around. And those were the two times that we purchased vehicles. Now, I will say, our car that we had, that we were driving around in, my little red Cavalier, was a 2-door coupe. I thought I was cool in that car. I thought I was so cool.
You were cool in the car until we got a new car and it became mine.
That's true. And so you had to get in and out and maneuver in this little 2-door coupe, which was not pretty. But
I felt like Mr. Incredible from the movie, trying to get out of this little, cabby dog. I used to say, rolling in the cabby dog.
That's right. I mean, and hey, it served its purpose until it didn't.
But even to our credit, because while we could have done it sooner, we were still trying to make good decisions along the way, even though we did buy a car, then bought another car. But before we bought that second car, we had replaced the transmission, the engine, the radiator, the radio, the tires. We had replaced everything in the Cavalier before we said, okay, we're going to buy another car. So we were trying to be responsible, but I'm not going to lie. I was an advocate for getting rid of the Cavalier.
Well, and you were driving it. I mean, honestly, because I was carting around the first child, you were driving the Cavalier. And so I understand that gets tiring, and it didn't suit a 6-foot tall man. It just did not. And so I get it. I understand. And you're right. We pretty much rebuilt the car over time. We had that car for a long time. And so, we wanted to ensure we didn't have 2 car notes. So we had 1 car note at a time. So that was our little glimmer of wisdom in the moment, because the truth is that we didn't want to have 2, $300 car notes.
I think, as we recollect these things and situations that we've been through, we've never been people to have 2 car notes. I've been very fortunate, working in the corporate arena to have a company car. And even with that, I have not gone out and purchased a car of my own. And I've thought about it, but even today, I still feel like I can't put, good money after bad. I've got a perfectly good company car. Why would I spend, a lot of money on another car that's my own? Even though I'm very tempted, people. I'm just being honest with myself. But back then, we were really trying to be mindful, and we were trying to make good decisions. But, sometimes, that I had to let the Cavalier go. And we rolled into the Yukon. But I think it's funny how I'm driving the Cavalier and you're driving the newer car. We had an Infinity, and you were driving that. And then as soon as we got the Yukon, somehow the Infinity became mine. And the Yukon became yours.
Because the better car always goes to Mama Bear. Come on now. I'm not alone in this. That is why. I'm just saying. And
I'm speaking to the fellas out there. We're going to create a revolution, fellas. We're going to change this narrative.
I still got the better car to this day, 25 years in, man.
That's true. I drive what the company gives me, so
That's right. And my car is better.
you're not lying. But, I take
But
what they give me,
even
and I'm happy with it.
even saying that though, I would have probably done the cars differently. I wanted the home. And if there were a way to have done the vehicles differently, likely the Yukon was more money than I probably wanted to spend. And so, what I teach people now is to buy what you can afford with cash. And that one is the one that put us over that 90K mark. And so, that's probably what I would have done differently is to have purchased a vehicle with cash that was less expensive. And even though I was the one to drive the car, I have to say I'm not as much of a car person. I'm like literally light years away from you in terms of the way that I enjoy cars. And I just feel like they're functional and they need to look good and we can keep it moving. I don't have to have the latest and greatest and all of that. And so I think there was a little bit of push on your end to get this nicer ride and to get the rims. Let's talk about those rims, Christopher.
Rolling on dubs.
He got the rims for the Yukon. I didn't even necessarily want the car. He made sure it had jewelry.
Look. See, this why I say, you can't claim Detroit sometimes because you from across 8 Mile. I'm from the deep east side, and you can't grow up in Detroit and not be a car person.
Right. Fair.
All my people out there in the D, you know what's up. We're all car people.
Yeah, Motor City. I got you.
That's right. So, I just think that it's interesting in this conversation as we're talking that I think we both agree that we could have got out of debt sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But we both identified things that were different that were motivators that helped kind of extend that journey. You wanted the house, and I thought we got a nice house, so we both kind of got on board. I wanted the cars, and you may not have necessarily wanted the cars, but you got on board with it, and we still were able to accomplish our goal. Mm-hmm. But if we were going to press, a do-over, we could have certainly cut that 5 years down to even 3 years.
Yeah.
And that would, I don't think where we sit today would be significantly different, but you never know.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? You mentioned childcare in there. Like we had 2 kids in those 5 years. And one, I would never trade the fact that we had the kids when we did. Now, I felt like it was early, definitely early. I didn't want them that early, but that's okay. They're here. It's fine.
Like, those are my babies now.
That's right. But the child care was no joke. At one point, we were paying the same amount of child care that we paid for that mortgage, which is insane. And nowadays, people pay that for one child.
Ooh, I can't even imagine what people are paying for child care. Mm-hmm. And so, we talked about that on previous episodes.
Yeah.
And I gotta stop. I can't even.
But that having kids prevented us from doing it sooner because they come with expenses. Kids are expensive. And childcare was the major expense that changed that for us as well. And so although they are 4 years apart, one came at the beginning of our time trying to get out of debt, and one came at the end of our time trying to get out of debt. But either way, like it was still money. And so those are things that we wouldn't trade, but it affected the journey for sure.
Yeah. And I also think when we talk about it, we wanted to enjoy ourselves along the way, and, we'll continue to preach, progress over perfection. Mm-hmm. And so, we want to share our examples because our journey wasn't perfect. Mm-hmm. But we continued to make progress and we accomplished our goals. And in retrospect, we can look back and say we could have done this differently or we could have approached it in this way, but it's still progress. And so I just like to share that with people that as long as you're making progress, it really becomes up to you to the pace that you're going to approach getting out of debt, following your journey, because the biggest thing that people have as an asset that they don't realize is their income. Mm-hmm. And when you free up income without having debt, it puts you in such a different place and position that your decision making process even changes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. I think that we don't realize what debt is taking away from us in the moment. And I always tell people, add up your payments. Add up your payment. Don't worry. Yes, add up the total amount of debt, sure, but add up how much the payments are costing you. And when you add that up, every month you got to pay $1,000 out or $1,500 out per month for credit cards, student loans, for medical debt, for car payments. Car payments nowadays is easy. $400, $500 a month. And that's not even a luxury vehicle.
That's a old school hoopty.
Thanks, son.
You can't get a Honda Accord for less than 40 grand a year now.
True. And that's what's so terrible is that we say that these things are needs. And sure, you need transportation, but do you need that particular vehicle? That's a completely different matter. And so the decisions that are made are always things that you have to think about, add it up and think about the return on that investment. Like how much longer is this going to take me to reach whatever it is, the goal that you have. And so, the one thing that we inserted in our time, the entire time that we were getting out of debt, was our travel.
Yeah, I think I didn't travel a lot as a kid, and I remember, our trip every year was to go like to the amusement park that was in the Detroit area, Boblo Island. Every summer we got to go to Boblo. That was, you went downtown, you got on the Boblo boat, and you went to the theme park, and that was our vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got married, we were like, we're gonna go on some real vacations, and some of them, were road trips because we lived in Arizona. We would drive to Cali, and we would go see what was in L.A. and we'd go to San Diego, and we drove to Las Vegas, and we did a lot of things like that. But we did start taking some other little trips along the way.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that has been consistent in our relationship is the travel. Now, like you said, we did road trips mostly during that season, but we just didn't decide to say no. When we would fly somewhere, it would be to Michigan, back to see family. We didn't take any fancy, trips and that kind of thing, but we used cash. We didn't want those trips to follow us home. So we weren't putting it on a credit card with a monthly payment. We wanted to ensure that, it was with cash and it didn't detour us from, our direction of where we were trying to go with getting out of debt. And so I have no regrets, absolutely zero, zilch, nada, a single regret about the trips that we took, because I think that is something that added to all of the relationships that we have amongst us, the four of us, and that helped us to really just, enjoy our time together in that season. That could have been 5 years of pain and suffering and turmoil, and it wasn't. We learned how to have a little bit of balance by being able to enjoy, and I think that's fair for anybody to desire.
Look, in the Bible, it says to count the cost, so that you don't start building and you're unable to finish. And when you talk about getting out of debt and a debt journey, what people need to consider, they need to take a moment and, like you said, add their payments up, but count the cost. Figure out how long it's going to take. If you stay on your current path and you're not making any adjustments or sacrifices, see how long that's going to take you. And we made some adjustments, we made some sacrifices, but we didn't make total sacrifices. So it took us 5 years. Had we maybe stopped, reset, or reassessed and counted our costs, we could have said, well, maybe if we cut this out, like if we didn't move, we didn't buy a home, we could have said, well, this is going to take us 3 years. Well, maybe if we don't buy a car, this is going to take us 2 years. And we could have got out of that sooner. Then we could have said, okay, now we've got income free. We're going to save and we can buy a house or we can buy a car or whatever it is. But I think people who are trying to get out of debt have to count the costs, see how long it's going to take, and then start to chart your plan, see what you're committed to. And I think, with debt reduction and getting out of debt, it's about staying the course.
Yeah.
It's about putting one foot in front of the other and making sure that you stay committed to the journey along the way, because there's going to be things that come along that will certainly entice you
Yeah.
to get off the road.
Absolutely. And I think that staying committed is the biggest part of it all. Your journey, own it. That's yours. That's totally fine. And it's not going to look like somebody else's. Your journey is not going to look like ours. And you have to be consistent. So when life throws you, a curveball, or you have a kid and you're like, wait a minute, wasn't gonna have kids this early, like our story, and you have to figure out, okay, well, we got to pause for a couple months until mama goes back to work. We had to do that, and those are the kinds of things that you have to make sure that no matter what happens in life, you get back on track and you remain consistent. If nothing else, I really believe that one of the strongest things about our journey is that we were consistent. And so no matter what anybody said or no matter what life's, brought our way, we can honestly say we stayed consistent because we didn't let those things in life get us off of our eventual goal.
Yeah, I think it's easy for people to start out. Well, it's not easy, but you can start out and you can count the costs and you can say, this is how long it's going to take. And you can start going down that road. Then, boom, something happens. An unexpected car repair, or, if you live in a home repair, or, something can come up that serves as something that's trying to derail you. It's easy at that moment to say, well, forget it. I ain't going to worry about it. This is stressful. Deal with the issue and then get back on track.
Yeah.
And don't let it may set you back a little while, but don't let it derail you. Because what happens is people allow things to derail them and they don't continue on the journey when all it was a minor speed bump or a minor, roadblock that you encountered that maybe you had to do a little detour, but then you got right back on track.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think that's a really good takeaway, if you will. Don't let the speed bump get you off track, and count the cost, because if you count the cost, then you can go in with your eyes wide open instead of thinking that, it's going to be exactly as planned. Life does not go in our little straight lines that we would love for it to happen in, but even with the roadblocks, you can get free of debt. And so if we did it, you can do it too.
I think you're already getting into the make it worth it.
Hey.
So, and here at the For Better and Worth podcast, we talk about is it worth it, or now even, make it worth it. Mm-hmm. And I think counting the cost is how you make it worth it. Mm-hmm. Getting back on track, that's how you make it worth it, like you just said. But what else would you say makes it worth it?
Don't compare your journey to anybody else's.
Oh, man. Preach.
Your journey is yours. Own it. And don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't compare yourself to the youngs. We are one example, not the only. And just know that you can glean from what you learn from other people and keep moving forward, because it's your journey is beautiful just in the way that it is.
I was going to go back to the old Baptist church and get my handkerchief. Go on, preach now. Preach now. I'm just throwing it at you. Preach now, because, comparison is the biggest enemy to progress. And we talk about progress over perfection. And if you play that comparison game, that can certainly derail you, because it is an enemy to progress.
Yeah.
So don't let comparison be the thing that keeps you from accomplishing your goal. Yeah. Because as we said at the beginning, in the middle, and we're even saying now, it's your journey. Mm-hmm. And own your journey, because at the end of it, you're going to get the outcomes you're looking for. You're going to get the rewards. You're going to get the benefits. And so just make sure you own your journey. And I believe that's how you make it worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't compare yourself. Matter of fact, use someone else's light and what they bring to the world as encouragement that, hey, it can happen for me too.
That's
just
right.
Turn that around.
Take that experience like, look, if they did it, I know I can do it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, we could have gotten out of debt faster. And likely, my guess is it would have taken us no more than 3 years. But I honestly wouldn't trade it. I honestly wouldn't trade the ability to travel and enjoy with my family. I wouldn't trade the fact that we were homeowners at a young age. We learned a lot in that. I would not trade the fact that we took a little bit more time and we enjoyed the moment And that, I think, is a significant thing to reflect back on.
Look, if we had done it sooner, that'd be 2 years less of stories I have.
Oh my gosh. You know what? He stayed in debt just to be able to tell a story.
Look, I'm full of stories. That'd have been 2 years less. But, given what I know now, I would have sacrificed some of the stories to get the journey done sooner. But
there you go.
We want to just say thank you for joining us again. And I hope this, helped you.
Mm-hmm.
I hope people get something from it because I think it was worth having this discussion.
Absolutely. And we want you to get out of debt as quickly as you can. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you tune in next time.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up for our email on forbetterandworth.com.
Till next time, we're out of here.